Welcome to r/Reddit Revenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. And today we have 4 great stories. So subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story. In a toxic office obsessed with mugs, I instigated a mug mayhem, redistributing them to trigger arguments, ultimately breaking the toxic culture. The second story. In a grocery store encounter with her former creepy boss and his fiancée, OP dramatically confronted him, revealing his infidelity and leading to the unraveling of his personal and professional life. The third story. Clever coworker enacted petty revenge on a bossy and entitled colleague, leading to a shift in their dynamic. And the first story is, I made mugs of them all. I got a promotion to a new job some years back, and although it had several perks, one aspect was that I had to move/relocate my entire life to a regional office out in the middle of nowhere. It was a site that had previously been the main HQ, until some mergers had reorganized everything and resulted in it essentially being downgraded. It's fair to say that there was a fair bit of resentment amongst the remaining staff about the downgrade, and also fair to say there was a gulf between that office and the rest of the workforce. People tended to avoid there because it was out of the way and generally run down, and I think the people there took that as being left out, and felt like they were looked down on, and maybe that's not entirely unfair. That issue and some dominant personalities left to run unchecked meant that me rolling up as a young and newly promoted outsider was bound to stir up resentment. But I can honestly say I did my best to be the decent sort with everyone there, before I was promoted. As you might expect from such an insular environment, from the onset there was a general snide, sarcastic, and patronizing attitude towards me. People can't be expected to know how everything works for a new office, so of course they'll ask questions. Some people seem to enjoy being a D about the fact that I didn't know everything. For a long time, I really wasn't happy there. I had moved away from friends and family too, so was lonely to boot. And it really got to me to the point I used to dread going to work. In particular, there was a group of middle-aged women who were known for being catty and unpleasant, until they really took a dislike to me. They were famous even outside of that office, and I had been warned about them before I moved, as they were nasty to everyone outside their group, so I wasn't alone. But I definitely got the brunt. Good example, about 3 months in, some absolute lies were told about my behavior, and it was only through my good relationship with my new boss that I was able to assure him of this. I should mention that one of the things that really formed a point of contention in that office was the mugs people used for tea and coffee. For some reason, people were protective of their mug to the point of obsession and woe to anyone who accidentally borrowed someone else's. It sounds ridiculous, but I SHU not, it was a big deal, and people would interrupt meetings and email the entire organization if they believed someone was using their mug. Committing said sin was an easy mistake to make, as once out of the dishwasher, communal mugs and people's own mugs were left on the same shelf in the cafeteria for people to pick up the next morning. Anyway, some months in, as part of my role, I was sent a box of about 100 promotional mugs, and though I used most of them for the intended purposes, it proved far too many, and in order to clear some space, I eventually started giving the remainder, about 25 to 30, to colleagues. As many people's mugs were quite old, many were happy to use the new mugs, the aforementioned group of spiteful hags included. My chance for some petty revenge started when I noticed that the fact that everyone now had the same style of mug caused a few issues. There was more than enough for everyone, but people wanted one to be theirs, which isn't straightforward when they're identical. There were 1 or 2 arguments about it, even before I did anything, but that was what gave me the idea. Starting slowly every time I worked late and saw clean mugs from the dishwasher on the side, I started gathering the ones I had given out up and returning them to the box I had gotten them from. I would then give them out again to someone else, until about 25 to 30 mugs had been given out to about 40 people. Over time, the expected fireworks began to happen, which seemed to make the unpleasant group of ladies happy to begin with. They had gossip and drama they could stir up, until suddenly they were accusing each other of this heinous mug theft. The mug issue was the spark that ripped the group apart as years of backstabbing, conniving, and BS surfaced and they turned on each other. Friendships dissolved and resentment spilled over into the work arena too. One episode got out of hand to the point that a shouting match escalated in front of visitors, which, along with the spike of complaints, not all mug-related, finally brought the attention of management on the place. They put their foot down on that office, and started being more hardline with expectations of professional conduct, which eventually led to a far better work environment. With the worst elements splintered, the general vibe of that office changed, and after a time I became considered less of an outsider. I worked there for a good 5 years, survived redundancy from the bad economy that culled a lot of the nasties, and eventually I left, with some reluctance, for a new job in London that paid far better. I only confessed what I did at my leaving do to a small group of my now close friends who had never ever thought I had anything to do with what happened. They thought it was hilarious, and I even left on my last day with one of the mugs that sits proudly in my cupboard at home. You're new to the office and are confronted with the habits and sharp sarcasm of your colleagues. I understand how you feel. At first, you gave everyone cups in an attempt to make the atmosphere more friendly, but it seems that people in your office were so greedy for their cups that it led to a whole lot of chaos. Your cunning plan to take and return the cups switched on the fire of a battle that was already ready to be fought for these precious rivers. But we got a great result. Changes in the office atmosphere and increased requirements for professional behavior worked for the better. And in the end, you left the office with funny memories and even a souvenir cup. You achieved your goal, and now you can proudly have a cup to remember this sad and at the same time fun period in your life. Brilliantly solved. The next story is, I thought you loved me. So this was a while back, but still makes me smile. When I was 17, I had this crappy job as a food service employee at a local nursing home. One of the bosses there, we'll call him Rick, was a total creep. He would always stare at us girls while we were cleaning up after meals, and picked a few of us to follow around. He would walk past us and accidentally graze us with his hand, and other uber pervy things. He also bragged about how he cheated on his ex-wife, and how he was engaged to the woman he cheated with like he was so proud of himself. And this all while he's trying to undress 17 to 18-year-old girls with his eyes. I'm sure he was doing this to some of the other girls, but he seemed to single me out for more attention. It wasn't anything too crazy, so I never reported it. And word was Rick got a big promotion at another location, and would be moving to that job, so I tried to wait it out. One day I had to go into this storage room we barely ever used to restock something. This room looked like it was an old walk-in fridge, so no windows or anything, just one door. I went into the room and was standing tippy-toe to try to get something off the top shelf when I heard the door open. I was facing away from the door, so I couldn't see, but knew it was strange that anyone would come in. Next thing I know, someone tried to touch me with their hands. I whirled around and smacked this guy across the face. Sure enough, it was Rick, and said something to the effect of, "If you want this new fancy promotion, you'll never touch me again, or I'll go straight to head of company and then to the police." Honestly, should have gone to the police anyway, but unfortunately I was used to being harassed by creepy older men. Anywho, Rick barely looked my direction for the next few weeks until he left. Fast forward a little bit later. Rick had left and I thought I would never see him again, until one day when I was grocery shopping with my boyfriend, who knew the situation. I was walking down an aisle when guess who turns down the same aisle coming towards me. As soon as he sees me, he froze, turned ghost white, and quickly turned around and left. And here's where my petty kicked in. Instead of just walking away or leaving, I followed him. I turned the aisle and saw he was with his fiancée. Perfect. Cue the dramatics. I started yelling, "Rick, where have you been? I haven't heard from you in weeks. I missed you, baby. I thought you loved me." When the look on his fiancée's face was sufficient, I just stopped, looked at her and him and said, "Oh, I see," and just turned and walked away, flashing the biggest SH-eating grin I could muster up at him, as his fiancée had already started laying into him. Rick just looked shell-shocked. All his colleagues and bosses found out about his mistress. Last I heard, he lost his job and his fiancée had left him. Rick obviously got what he deserved for his inappropriate behavior. Your reaction was just hilarious and unceremonious, and that made it even better. When you started yelling at Rick and playing the role of his lover, it was a real gem. And then your smile at the end was a masterpiece. You did the right thing because he deserves to lose his job and his love. Such bad guys will be punished. If someone is willing to cheat in order to be with you, they're likely to cheat on you with the next person who attracts their attention. I find it puzzling when people are genuinely surprised to learn that someone who cheated on their spouse continues to engage in inappropriate behavior with others. I commend you for asserting yourself and demonstrating fearlessness when you encountered him again. The third story is a short story of a Karen getting her just desserts. Backstory. This happened a few months ago, and I just remembered it from when my coworker told me about how he'd got a bit of petty revenge on a very entitled coworker. We work at a well-known major airline stationed overseas, but I am a part of the team that was hired and based in the US. Only way to describe Karen is if she respects you, she'll be an absolute angel to you, but if she doesn't respect you, she'll make Satan look like an absolute saint. Another thing to note is Karen outranks me, due to her being in the airline longer than me, and my coworker. AC in this story is it's from his point of view, due to the fact that she wanted the additional responses in order to rise up in rank and position and she did not like me or my coworker at all, which means she had tried to make our lives heck. Examples: Karen has a tendency to sabotage those who she doesn't like by giving them critical information late, ignoring them over the two-way radio, being extremely rude to them, looking down on them, and more. Also, the other airlines in that airport and airport staff doesn't like her, given the fact that she tends to give them attitude. Cast. Names changed. AC. My awesome coworker. This is from his point of view. Karen. Your normal entitled Karen, except she's working in the same company as you. Only thing I can describe her is if she respects you, she'll be an absolute angel to you. But if she doesn't respect you, she'll make Satan look like a saint. Story. This happened during the outbound flight and restrictions and precautions. People had to have their temps scanned and the paperwork saying they do not have ill to fly overseas. This duty tends to be rough as passengers will sometimes disrespect you, and it isn't easy to take the abuse they can sometimes hurl at you. I've seen some of my coworkers in tears from the abuse they get. Karen. AC, can you do the temperature scan for me, please? AC. But Karen, you love the temperature scan. If I do it, you'll be complaining a lot later. Anyway, I need to check the passenger's boarding pass and passport before they board. Have fun. AC did this in front of the duty manager in a friendly customer voice tone. She ended up having to put up with some extremely rude passengers that day, while on temperature check station. Later post-flight during the post-flight meeting, she was in tears due to a bunch of rude passengers. Since then, she stopped trying to sabotage AC, but still acted rude to him. Side note, I only found out about this when I saw Karen in tears, and the story a few days later from AC. Bonus story. This is another revenge done to Karen. I only know the short version of it, and this happened a couple of months before I joined the airline. I was told about this from my friends in the other airlines and staff in the airport, who all conspired to get some petty revenge on Karen. The airline, me, AC, and Karen are part of, has a policy that all bags that were sent to the flight must be loaded on the plane, even if it may delay the flight. So these other employees held a VIP luggage until last second, hiding it at another airline's LD3 container. Karen was panicking trying to find the luggage, ended up running around the massive airport trying to find it. The other airline's staff and airport ground staff played dumb, even though they knew where the VIP bag was. She was desperate to find it, as she would have taken the blame for causing a delay of the flight, which would have been getting chewed out by the airline managers and airline headquarters, and losing her nice end-of-year bonus pay, which is the equivalent of a few months' pay if you did your job at a really good level. They, airport ground staff, would end up loading it to the aircraft at the last second, and didn't notify Karen that it was loaded until the plane left, and she found out by then. She was exhausted from running around the airport and peeved at what they did to her. Basically, everyone described her running around like a headless chicken, while laughing at the petty revenge they pulled on her. Also, how those people knew a luggage was a VIP luggage is because it was tagged with VIP on the luggage tag. This is usually done so people know which luggage is ultra-high priority, and to treat that luggage with the best care in the world. It is known that Karen can be like an angel when she wants to be, but if she's not respected, she makes life hell. But in this case, it was she who was deceived. All the bigwigs at the airport united to get some justifiable revenge on Karen. Well done. Subscribe, click the like button if you want to support the channel. Thank you for watching.